Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another chat with one of our sponsors. So we have Crystal here from snyk. I'm gonna just let her introduce herself quickly. Crystal.
Crystal Hirschorn. I work at snyk. I am the director of engineering for the infrastructure group at snyk, so looking after cloud platforms, infrastructure, and site reliability engineering.
Great. And as we were saying earlier before we actually got started, I knew you when you were at Condé Nast, and I believe in other places as well. It's such a small world, right?
It's true.
We
It's
all
true.
kind of bump into each other in like different companies, different places, and a lot of events. Obviously, that's how we all get connected most of the time. So how long have you been with snyk?
So I've been with snyk only 6 months.
Okay.
I started back in late August last year.
Okay. And
Yeah,
yeah, as far as I remember, you were also like director of engineering in
correct.
the previous place, right? Yeah.
That's right. And also, that was when I started at my last company, and then I was
Mm,
promoted to their VP of engineering.
yeah, I remember
So
that quite well.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so let's maybe talk about snyk a little bit. Maybe you can like let us know, what products and services snyk, is into. I'm sure a lot of people, have heard of snyk. I've heard of snyk. I met actually your team in. I was in Santa Monica, I think right before the pandemic. There
Yeah.
was like a cybersecurity conference, and they were one of the sponsors there. So I got chatting to some of them. But yeah, maybe if you can like just talk about the products and services, that would be great.
Sure. We do sponsor a lot of events, both in tech and in kind of security. That's right. So we kind of describe it, I guess, as a DevSecOps company. We build tools for other engineers, essentially. So our main sort of customer base is other engineers, which for me is really cool. Like I love that. I've never worked in a company that builds the products and tools that the engineers get to use every single day, all of the time. And it's really about, so we're kind of shifting away from being like purely a SaaS company to more like a PaaS company, a platform as a service,
Mm-hmm.
trying to kind of build up like a whole security portfolio that kind of covers the whole software development lifecycle, including reaching into production and operation side of things as well, with like our container scanning, infrastructure as code, tooling as well. We're bringing out a SAST product, static analysis tooling as well, in the next kind of couple of months. In fact, it's very soon. So it's quite exciting times. Like we're kind of building up the portfolio very, very rapidly now. And so it's kind of like high growth, but high energy company. It's great.
Yeah, yeah. It's always been interesting to me. I haven't really like doubled
Yeah.
that aspect of it, but in terms of like just being a developer, obviously you can like build something, but if you're not really thinking about security and all that, then you're not really creating a product that is safe
Right,
to like
exactly.
send out there into production and for your users to use. So I think there should be
Yeah.
some consciousness really in terms of that. So how is snyk like reaching out to developers? So are there any like developer programs that you can talk about?
Yeah, sure. snyk is very involved in like community, I guess, as well. And I think one thing I didn't actually touch on was the fact that we're very kind of open source focused as a company as well. Like that's a big part of our premise as well. It's trying to build tools that are adoptable and easily used against the open source communities. So they integrate in with many of the major open source technologies, but also languages. Like we have things for Python, for Ruby, for JavaScript. Now we're bringing out C, C++ as well, PHP. The list kind of goes on as well. And so it really is about like, if you're building tools for engineers, you have to work in those communities. And so we do have things like snyk community, which is like a way of getting in touch with us and just chatting to our DevRel team and to actually engineers that work on these teams as well. Because like I say, like for us to build the right products, the best products that meet the needs, we need to constantly be in touch with
Talking, yeah,
other engineers, essentially. And that's also
yeah.
why we do a lot of outreach around events as well. A lot of public speaking. We write actually a lot of content on our website as well, like blog content, and some of it's very like technically quite deep content that doesn't exist anywhere else, and in terms of like that topic being covered. So again, like that really excites me in terms of a place to work as well, and to kind of see that, because I've been an engineer for so long. So it's like I say, it's really cool to kind of be in a company that builds tools like this for other engineers.
For developer, yeah, exactly, for
Yeah.
engineers. Actually, I just remembered that last year. So we have you, here today, and we have snyk, present in this conference. But I remember last year I was actually speaking on one of your events around International Women's Day as well.
Oh, well, that's cool.
So yeah, it's nice, to have you here this year, and I participated in your event last year as well. So yeah, I knew some, and Diana, I think, was one of the people I was speaking to. And some, I think, I knew her from the community, as
That's
well,
cool.
even before
That's
she
really
joined
good
snyk. I can't remember which company she was with at the time, but yeah, it's just very interesting that we've been like what do you call this, interacting, for a while now, and we all like kind of move around into like different
exactly. Yeah.
but it's great. That's the beauty of community, right? Even though people move, from one company to another, you still maintain that relationship. So it's I think it's great that we have that. Yeah. Just trying to think. So we're obviously celebrating International Women's Day today. Is there any specific like program that snyk has in terms of like, not specifically just for women in technology, but like diversity, equity, and inclusion in general that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, like in terms of HR programs, probably less aware, but I'd just say like in terms of my own kind of experience, like it was one of the reasons why I came to work at snyk. I have, like a lot of women, there's a lot of choice. So especially the more senior you become. And so I think like for me, the culture has to be right. Like I won't go to a company unless the culture looks like it's going to really fit well with me. And diversity, of course, is a huge topic for me, and inclusion and equity, as you mentioned. And that's something that I really focused on when I was at my last company, because I built up that whole engineering org in my last company from the ground up, basically, and made sure that we had good representation across the teams as well. And I always think it could be better, always. And so like it's good to it's good to kind of be your own critic, but also good to kind of think about how are you doing against other companies. I think also it's like the more women and people from other kind of underrepresented groups that you bring in, it's kind of you have to start somewhere, and kind of like that has to grow like right across the company. And I think like there are other female directors of engineering that are my counterparts, so I'm not the only one, which is nice. But also it's like there are quite a lot of like female engineering managers and from other sort of underrepresented groups as well, are sort of represented throughout the engineering organization, as well as, and product as well has a very kind of very diverse set of people. So that like makes me have a very nice feeling coming into the company, because like I said, I've only been here 6 months, and it's something that I'm looking to do on my own teams as well, as I grow those teams as well. And one thing that we did, one thing we did recently was we did an intern program. Okay. And so we have brought on, I think it's 6 people in total into R&D to have a go at trying out software engineering. And I think I'm pretty sure 5 of the 6 were women. So
that's a very nice ratio.
Yeah, so I was very happy about
different from the usual. That's really
exactly
good.
Exactly.
I mean, I agree that it's a continuous process. I was chatting to someone earlier, and we were talking about like continuous integration, continuous this and that, and I said that's what we should be doing, in terms of like diversity and inclusion. And then she said, we have to start somewhere, and then just continue building on that, building up on that. Definitely. And I knew some of your team from your previous organization, like Michelle. We mentioned earlier before we got on this chat. And I remember something that she said. She probably won't even remember this. That she said this. So I think we were, oh, actually, I think we were at Twitter at that time, and we were chatting, and she was saying something about a conversation she's having with, some friends, and she was saying that, it's like this gender diversity thing is like a rainbow, and I actually always thought that that was like a beautiful, like description, of this thing.
Yes.
And I never kind
Yes.
of forgot that. And I was actually planning to get in touch with her to say, okay, Michelle, let's have like I don't know, a panel or something, on that topic,
Yeah.
and let's talk about like different things. I never got around to it because I'm so busy. But yeah, no, I think yeah, it's really important that we have to recognize like the colorful,
Definitely.
things that's out there in terms of like gender and other, other aspects of diversity, really. So yeah,
Yes, there's so
it's really
many
nice.
there's so many aspects to it, I think, as
Yeah.
well. And I think that's everybody has to kind of learn together, I think, as well. And Michelle,
Mm.
she was amazing. Like, she did teach me a lot as well. You'd think by just being a woman in tech you'd know a lot. But
That's not,
we had,
yeah,
yeah, we had really like deep conversations about it as well. Like, like there's all kinds of diversity that we need to consider when we're building
yeah,
our teams. And I think like just looking at the ratio of men to women is the very, very basic starting point. So I think it's just about
definitely.
growing
Yeah.
beyond that point. Yeah.
Yeah, even I, that where I do a lot of, work in terms of the women tech space, I recognize that I'm only addressing, like a small like problem, right? There are yeah, she said there are other
But
things we
it's
need
an
to,
important one.
it's, yeah, it is
Hugely
definitely.
important
And
one.
yeah, yeah, I think we shouldn't, yeah, definitely. And I'm not stopping my work just because
Exactly.
of that, the fact that, okay, it's a small part of like diversity, equity, inclusion, but it's an important part. But yeah, definitely there are a lot of things that we should still be doing. And
Yes.
I'm really hoping a
Yes.
lot of companies, really wake up to the fact that that needs to be done, and not just really using it as a talking point. Because that for
Yes.
me is, yeah, it's not, obviously not, it's not very genuine and all that. But yeah, but of course, in the beginning it will be an uncomfortable conversation.
Of course. Yeah.
And I was just I gave a talk the other day at the British Computer Society, and one thing that one of the audience said is, people need to start being comfortable with being uncomfortable, which
Right.
I
Right.
think
Right.
is a beautiful
I think that's
description.
important too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
I
yeah,
think,
we all don't
yeah.
know anything, everything. Sorry, and the key is education, right?
Yeah.
And we
I
have to
think
start
so.
from there. Yeah.
And I
Um,
think like it's about also like you say, identifying steps that an organization can actually take to be proactive about it too. And it's about making sure like like there's things about bringing folks into a company, and it's quite a different story around celebrating and promoting those people as well.
yeah,
And so you have to make sure that you have a balance of both, because it can quickly become you know it can be counteractive to what you're actually trying to create. So I think like a good thing that Snyk does as well is that they're fairly transparent, but they're fairly good at things like pay parity,
mm,
and things like benefits as well, and
yeah,
things that kind of back up what a lot of women, I think, in tech feel are kind of like things where it's like the market, the industry is not quite fair or
yeah,
equitable yet. And so I do think Snyk does a really good job of that. And there's like I say, a healthy, really healthy, section of female leadership right across the company. It's not just R&D or engineering.
yeah.
I've actually noticed just how many of like the kind of C-suite level people and the VP level below that, which are women. It's it might even be a majority at this point. So
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have, role models, right, for other women
right,
to, yeah, to
absolutely,
look up to,
and to kind of
and
feel like people are being promoted up into these roles as well. Like I've seen
yeah,
that happen already a couple of times only in the 6 months that I've been here.
that's good.
Like women
Um,
going from like director to VP already.
Okay. So yeah, I was like reading a tweet the other day. I can't remember who actually was tweeting it, but she was saying to someone, to a guy, that
Yeah,
if you want more women in tech, then start hiring. Like start with one, and
yeah,
let that
yeah,
woman like hire other women and all that.
yeah,
So yeah, it has to start somewhere really, and it has to be something that's an active thing. It's not going to just talk
yeah,
about the yeah, I
absolutely.
always say this, like, don't
Yeah,
just
yeah,
talk about the problem, like do
yeah.
something. It's not
Well, it's like a really
not
good
gonna change.
there's a really good I think it was Laura Hogan, who's like really well known in the tech industry, but
Mm,
she either wrote an article or linked to an article which is called like two in the pool, and it
mm,
talks about how when you're interviewing candidates, like the best way to actually get that representation inside the company is to make sure that you always have at least two candidates in the pool of candidates going through that process, because it's way, like the statistics are way higher that you will end up hiring somebody from an underrepresented group than if you just
yeah,
have one in the pool. And so like again, it's something like we talk about a lot at Snyk, is like also around our hiring practices and making sure that there is fair representation in that group as we go through that process,
yeah,
which makes a big deal. It makes a very big deal if you're very kind of deliberate and very conscious of these efforts on a
yeah.
consistent basis.
Yeah, and eliminating biases, for example, by maybe hiding the
Definitely.
name or gender, and
Oh,
all
loads
that.
of
That,
things.
that helps a lot, right? Because
Definitely.
even if, for example, just talking about like candidates who are all male, for example, if you've got
Yeah.
like a Western sounding name and a non-Western
Yes.
sounding name, there's already a bias there somehow, right? Uh,
Yes.
we can deny it, but it's actually true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Exactly.
more so, between like a man and a woman, or yeah, or someone from like
Uh,
an underrepresented group.
I
Okay,
think
so
also there's like even things like ageism that can come into
yeah,
tech,
yeah,
like in a
definitely,
big
yeah,
way as well. Like people that I used to work with as well, they were like, well, I'm in my late 40s, early 50s. And so sometimes they felt like that there could be biases around that too. Like that they're kind of being seen as they're at the very end of their career or something like
yeah.
that, which is just like, yeah, it's just, so I think
When
we have to
actually
be
they have all the knowledge, like they
yeah,
have a
right,
lot of
exactly.
knowledge in them that yeah, you just don't discount actually,
Yeah, yeah,
because that would benefit the company, for
exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
So I have a question here. What is this? Why do you think developers need a community?
Why do you think they need communities? It's a very good question. It's a big question. So I think developers need communities because I think developers are just collaborative people anyway. So I think it's naturally going to happen. But I think it's a way of working on solving problems together, and having kind of a shared understanding of how to get there. A way of connecting with other like-minded individuals who have maybe some shared principles and
Yeah,
goals, and want to kind of get to a destination together. It's exciting. It's exciting to kind of deliver something and to make something. Like, I guess that's why we're all drawn to this kind of career. It's like it's a maker's kind of career. I'd also say that it gives you like I say, a sense of belonging. Like
yeah,
you have people that you can kind of know personally, but also just work with as
yeah.
well.
So there's some support there.
I think it also fosters innovation as well.
Mhm.
It's just, it
Yeah,
brings
exchange
like,
of ideas, and yeah, yeah, definitely.
absolutely, it can kind of lower the barrier to, like when we talk about things like biases and what happens inside companies. Some companies are not great places to work for that, by the way. So like if you're in an open source community, it still exists. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong. I see enough on Twitter
Yeah,
to be wise to these
Twitter
things,
is
but
interesting.
some of those communities are toxic. Some of them are not. So this, yeah, the ones that are not toxic, like I think it can encourage like, so many different perspectives, and yeah, just you kind of probably get the best out of everything in a way, because it's like there's no barrier there. Open source is open source, so it should really be open for contribution. If you can contribute. And I think like I love how people are very like willing to have open arms around that and say, even if you just want to make a README update,
Yeah,
good enough place to
that
start.
will help you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
exactly. And so I do
and
love that
and
kind of
and a
encouragement.
lot of these maintainers, right? They do this on a voluntary basis on
Oh,
top of their
absolutely.
jobs and on top of families. I know
Yes.
someone personally who's like the technical lead, for example, for RxJS.
Right.
He's a very busy person, but yeah, he's just giving a lot of his time for
Yes.
a product that's being used by a lot of people actually, and sometimes gets flack, for some minor thing, really. And people
Yeah.
should really just think about what they
The
put on
people.
their
Yeah,
PRs and all that. you know,
absolutely.
they don't. He doesn't
Yeah.
owe them anything, right? He's giving
Yeah.
his time for free. So, and
Yeah.
a lot of containers are in the same boat. So
But I think
yeah,
also, like, if you look at the history of like software engineering and technology as well, as like what a great time to be in this industry. Like open source
yeah,
was not hugely a thing until 10, 15 years ago, right?
yeah.
And before that, there was a lot of inner source, closed source type stuff. And so
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't like a lot of, again, like it hindered innovation in a lot of ways. There wasn't interoperability. And like if you think about today, a lot of companies, a lot of companies are just lots of open source things stitched together,
Yeah,
and maybe some stuff that's closed
that's true.
source as well. That's vendor technology or whatever. But it's like what a great time to kind of be in this industry. I mean, like sometimes the sprawl can be a bit mind blowing
Yeah,
for new engineer. I think for new engineers specifically, but I do think like it's an incredible time to say, oh, I wonder if anybody's built this thing yet, and go on GitHub and be like, oh yeah, somebody has. I'll just quickly, kind of git clone that thing and plug it into my stack, and there you go. Like
there
we're
you go.
away.
And then when you hit something, some other problem, you try and find something else.
Exactly.
and then,
Yeah.
then it becomes so large that you complain about performance.
Yeah. Exactly. And then, yeah,
That's the only like the other drawback, basically.
but that
Yeah.
could be good.
So, Christos, maybe to inspire, young people out there,
Mhm.
especially young women, do you want to talk about how you actually got into the industry? What made you interested?
Sure. I started coding at like a really young age. So I was about 9 when I probably started. And this is, I'm not like, it wasn't like super coding. It was like CSS and HTML,
Mhm.
tiny bits of JavaScript here and there. But, mainly things that I could figure out by searching the internet, basically. So it's kind of self-taught. So I was fairly young. I remember thinking it was pretty magical as well, like that you could actually just put something down in a text file, load it up, and see things actually happening. Because yeah, this is like back in the day before we had like the kind of nice console that we get with
Yeah.
Chrome and Firefox today. That stuff didn't exist, by the way, back then. And I remember creating a website in Front Page, Microsoft Front Page. Again, I think I'm showing my age a little bit here. So that would have been very late, like 1998, probably somewhere around there. Maybe 97. No, actually, it even might have been earlier than that. But yeah, that was really cool. And just yeah, like I said, it really inspired by like, oh, I can just edit the thing and it
Yeah.
does the
Create
thing.
something out of yeah,
Yeah,
just typing H1 whatever,
exactly.
something, and then close H.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And like
Yeah.
it's just like it's like, oh, okay, I can make it what I want. And this was also back in the day when we had things like MySpace, and everybody
Yeah.
wanted to heavily customize their MySpace to be like their own kind of thing, playing the music or with their poetry or whatever. So I thought that was like nice to kind of create something that was kind of like a reflection of like who I am as a person. And then just thought like this is so cool, like that we can make things almost like out of nothing, just our own creative minds, but also understanding like the logic that goes behind actually writing the code. And so I just carried that on through high school. I actually thought I would go into psychology, weirdly enough.
Okay. Totally
But
different field.
yeah, I mean it's interesting. I think in some ways there's a lot of overlap still, and like kind of the kind of people cognitive side of things, and
Yeah.
the way that engineering works today as well, especially as we get more complexity and kind of operational things that we have to deal with all the time. But I do think like my dad gave me some sage advice. He's like, yeah, he's like, you'll enjoy it more because I can tell. But he's like, also you'll make more money if you go into business and computing. So that's literally what I did at uni, was business and computing was my degree. And then I got my first role was a webmaster. It wasn't even necessarily doing design development. It was actually being a webmaster and kind of doing those kind of really small changes to the website, but also replying to people that would write in and say, how do I get to this bit of information, or hey, your website's broken like this. And so that was like a nice easing in. And then I became like design developer and then engineer for a really long time. So, and then eventually manager of engineers. so that was my journey. But yeah, long journey into engineering, early passion. But I also think part of the reason why I try to describe the story is that I think sometimes girls have this passion, but they are made to feel like it's not for them.
It's not real.
Or that they're not capable of getting there. And I just kind of want to say, like, you can. Hi, I'm still here. It wasn't like always an easy journey. I'll have to admit. It does take a little bit of persistence being here and in this field, and determination. But again, like it's changed a lot in the last 20 years that I've been in this industry. Like women,
and
much more.
it's improving, of course, because people are doing things actively now to address the problem. So that's really good. Of course, we probably won't be able to solve this problem in our lifetimes, but at least it's moving. It's not it's not stagnant, it's not static. So definitely people should just continue doing things to change the picture in terms of diversity, equity, inclusion. That's for sure. And I'm really hoping a lot more companies like snyk and some of our other sponsors are actively supporting initiatives like this to continue doing it, because I mean, especially for example, there are a lot of people who really do community work, and to ask them to actually, and this is my personal experience, to be honest with you, because I retired like a few years. I retired early a few years ago, and I've been doing all these community things. And what I found is, okay, yes, we do get support from sponsors, but sometimes I actually have to fork my own money to make things happen. And I've done that several times for this conference, because I've been running this since 2017.
That's nice.
But so I mean, I just wish more companies will realize that yes, there are people you kind of need to support, because they're already giving the time and their time and expertise and and effort. Don't ask them to pay for it because they're not a corporation.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not a corporation, for example.
Exactly.
And I have people, like I have a small team that I maintain and all that. And so far, I haven't had to let go of anyone, so that's good. But so that and thank you to snyk, for being one of the companies supporting us. And I know I know even from last year, right, that when I attended your Women in Tech event around this time, that there is a commitment there, I think, from the management of snyk to really encourage more women to get into technology, and to also look into diversity, equity, and inclusion, in general, in a more like committed way, in a more sincere way. So it's really good. So thanks, Crystal, for being with us today. Is there any, like, I don't know, maybe last few minute tips or advice or anything they want to say to our audience?
I just say, like, thank you for having me, by the way. Lovely to be here. Really humbled to be asked as well to kind of do this interview with you. I guess, just, I think find a sponsor. That's a good place to start in tech as well. I'd love to see more women coming into the field, because, like you said, the more role models that we have, I think the more that it will drive and encourage women to stay in the field as well, not just get into the field, but actually stay here as well. And I'm gonna be honest, it isn't always an easy journey staying in this field, but it's worth it. And like, if you have a passion for it, it's quite the ride. And so I would encourage women to try and stay with it, but also find spaces where and companies where you feel included and comfortable and safe, because that's really what matters. And I think like when women fall out of those kind of spaces, that's when it can be really rocky whether or not they stay the course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I absolutely love tech.
Me too, actually. That's why I'm
Yeah,
still, I
yeah,
said retired, but I've
exactly.
been, involved
I
in it.
can't imagine
Yeah.
doing anything different. Like I can't
Yeah.
imagine taking another career at this point, because I still love it to this day. And I know it's a lot to keep on top of all the time, but it's also really, fascinating, like where we go to in tech and what we can do with it. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yes,
yeah, definitely. I love the fact that there are always new things, that's like
exactly.
happening, popping up, being produced. So yeah, it's never boring. That's what I'll say.
That's definitely not, yeah, definitely not the case.
Yeah.
But
Right. So
I think also just on that point though, like if you've got a strong foundation of skills, tech skills, and kind of general skills in tech, like there will always be new stuff. I think people can be a bit daunted by the pace of it. But yeah, don't be discouraged is what I'd say. Like once you've got the solid foundation, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can always learn those new things if you really have to. So
definitely. So thanks a lot for that, Crystal. And folks, I hope you enjoyed, that chat and learned something, or learned a lot from it, really, that you can, apply, I don't know, in your daily lives or your company, and maybe you can be the, I don't know, the influencer, so that there's a change in your organization in terms of like diversity, equity, inclusion. I know it's difficult to be the first, but someone has got to start it.
yeah,
So
it
thank
has
you
to
very
start
much
somewhere.
again.
Thank you.